Hello, hi, I'm back again with another video concerning my new custom watercolor palette. If you're interested in how and why I put it together, I've went into some detail for that in the last video. After I also tested it there on a little painting in my sketchbook, I decided to get some more mileage out of that palette to practice. That's why I came back to my trusty old Paul Rubens sketchbook and painted some quick steadies. Now, I have mentioned before, I love drawing my own characters and that I do that most of the time, but sometimes when I'm in a mood to paint but don't want to put in the mental effort of coming up with an idea, I go to my Pinterest boards and pick some references to draw from. When your brain is empty, the easiest way to still get to paint something is to just outsource some of the process to a reference image. As you can tell from the footage, I am once again laying out my sketch with a colored pencil. Usually I gravitate towards red or purple for that. No real reason, they're just my favorite colors. But this time I'm starting out with an orange. Now, I have said that before, I don't have strong feelings about orange compared to other prettier colors, but this time I chose it because of my reference. Since I am using mostly transparent to semi-opaque watercolors, the lines and subsequently the color of my original sketch will show through on the final painting. That means I am making my life easier if I'm using a color that's already present in the image I'm working from. The photo I used as a reference was pretty heavy on cool blues and grays, as well as some warm browns and even some orange hues in the man's hair. Now, I could have also chosen blue pencils to emphasize the cool shadows, but I like going with warm tones whenever I'm drawing portraits because they bring out the warmth of skin very well, while cool colors tend to give a more ghostly pale vibe, which you might want sometimes, but I certainly didn't want here. Anyway, it's kind of funny. When I was younger, I used to really hate doing studies from photos. Mostly I avoided it like the plague, but when I did do them, I had to force myself through doing it. I knew it was supposed to be good for your skills, both observation and the ability to replicate what you see, and it is. It genuinely is really helpful if you want your art to look realistic, or in my case, not directly realistic, but believable, for a lack of a better term. Then you need to look at real life in photos. How could you be able to make something that looks like something real if you don't actually know what those real things look like? You couldn't. But even knowing that, I didn't like them and I barely did them. Genuinely, I'm not lying, I disliked this so much. I used to think people were either insane or lying when they talked about finding it relaxing, or even crazier, fun, when it made me personally want to chew glass every single time I tried. The weirdest part is that I have now, over time, joined the ranks of all the people who talk about how relaxing it is to draw from reference compared to from your imagination. I can't really pinpoint where the change happened, but a pivotal realization for me was that your drawing, even if it is based on a reference and supposed to be accurate, doesn't actually have to look the same. It's fine if it turns out different. I've always struggled with accurately copying proportions and likeness, and that's still the case. I've not gotten better at that. I've just stopped giving a shit. And honestly, I'm not the only one. In fact, this realization mostly happened because I was looking at work from artists I admired, and I saw that often enough, their drawings from reference didn't really look that similar either. Turns out accurately capturing likeness is really hard, but it also turns out if you don't show people the reference along with your own art, they'll never know how inaccurate it turned out. They'll just see the result and think, damn, that's pretty neat, and move on. Which is also why I'm not showing you the references I used. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Just believe that this is accurate, and we're all happier. In the end, it might also help to see working from reference as a learning opportunity instead of an opportunity to perform well. Maybe you won't get your drawing to look like the reference, but maybe in exchange you finally understood something about facial anatomy or color or line work. Studies are for learning, and learning can be pretty messy, and that's fine. That's why some of my sketchbooks are absolutely horrendous to look at and are filled with nonsense doodles or just studies that look terrible. On the topic of studies, let's get back to my studies here. I realized only after finishing the first portrait that I had basically only used colors that I already frequently reach for in my standard palettes, aka mostly the Pyrrole Orange and the Phthalo Blue. So I decided I needed to paint a second one, and this time I would actually go for the granulating paints instead of my old favorites. And to balance that out, I went back to using a trusty old red colored pencil for the sketch, which I love doing. Now, nothing here is a final observation, but in painting the second portrait, I have noticed that I don't really like the granulating effects when I paint skin specifically. The texture just feels kind of wrong. I'd personally much prefer a smoother look there, given that skin itself typically has a rather smooth texture. Where I do like it though, the texture I mean, is the hair. I feel like it would probably lend itself really well to more stylized depictions of hair, so I'm gonna put that on my list to try again later. It's a very long list, by the way. I'm also gonna have to experiment with these paints in landscapes, or perhaps even in painting creatures. I feel like those might do much better with this kind of texture. Besides the granulating paints, I only really grabbed some of my neutral tint for this second one. I think that neutral tint was mostly used for the darker parts and the line work. Turns out the granulating paints don't really lend themselves well to getting those really dark values that you want for the maximum contrast. Alas, it's okay. I have more than enough non-granulating paints on this palette to make up for it. Everything has its strengths and weaknesses. Just gotta, work with what you have. Anyway, I think I'm going to file these bad boys away under a successful painting session. They don't really look like their references, respectively, but as I've mentioned, I don't really care that much about it, and you didn't see the references, so you can't judge me for this. I had a really good time playing with my new paints, and that was ultimately the main goal of the painting session. Getting some more practice in, having a good time, getting more familiar, experimenting. But yeah, that is all from me today. I hope you have a pleasant rest of your day, and I hope to see you around.